In this video, I'll be painting up the latest set of Guardsmen by Station Forge and having quite a few mistakes along the way, so let's get on with it. So with all the Tyranids and everything that have been coming out of the Leviathan box set and building all of those up, I was getting a lot of Starship Troopers cravings, so I watched the film and then these got released by Station Forge, and they were giving me a hell of a lot of mobile infantry vibes. Now originally when I saw the renders, I wanted to go for like white armor and then like black fabrics and everything else to kind of give them like, I don't know, like the rebels had stolen stormtrooper armor. I really liked the idea of that. So I was at war in my head because I wanted that, but I also wanted to go with the mobile infantry. And foolishly, I went with the mobile infantry because they're absolutely awesome and they want to kill some bugs. So for these, I grabbed them, obviously put them in my slicer and then threw them onto the printer. The great thing about this set is it all comes in multi-part as well, so you can choose what sort of weapon loadouts they've got, what heads they've got, and just mix and match them to your heart's content. So I got a little squad of 10 of these units printed off, pulled them off the support and got them cleaned up. And once I got them all assembled, I hit them all with a black primer, and then I grabbed some airbrush paint, and at this stage I made my first mistake. I thought I would go for a medium grey and then a light grey from above, basically to give them that grey uniform that the mobile infantry have. But at this stage it kind of became more just white and it looked like a more traditional Xenophil than anything else. I went a little bit too heavy with those bright greys, and when I got over to the painting side of things, it needed another coat of grey. The problem is because I didn't have the bright white underneath it and I was using speed paints, I was starting to encounter issues at this stage because obviously the colour wasn't really as saturated and that just made things a little bit tricky. Now for the armour, obviously with the mobile infantry they have this like green like armour part and then the grey uniform underneath it. Again, one reason why mobile infantry probably wasn't the best thing to go for, because actually there's not too much contrast on these. So they look great on film, they look great in all the pictures and everything else, but actually on the tabletop there's just a lot of colours that end up really close together and often the contrast, which is a mistake we'll come on to later on. So for basically all the base stuff I went for Army Painter Speed Paints. I was using the new 2.0s, and for all like the armour panels and everything else I used Gunner Camo. This is a really nice green, it's not too bright, it's not too dark, it looks like some kind of camouflage you'd have on there, and it gets pretty close to the green armour that the mobile infantry have. For all the grey uniform I used Battleship Grey, which is this really nice like bluey grey. It's quite light, but the good thing is because it's got that hint of blue into it, it really helped to tint the rest of the model. So on some other greys that I tried, I wasn't seeing anything. When I put them onto the model, it just made like no change at all. But with this bluey grey, because of that blue tint in there, it did work quite nicely. Moving across onto things like the boots and like the backpack and anywhere else that I wanted any browns, so like the weapon pouches and stuff like that, I used Satchel Brown. This is just a quite nice mid brown. It looks really nice on all those pouches and extra bits. And then I went onto the weapons, and originally I was going to go for the nice bright like red weapons with some silver on there to make them really fit into like 40k. But I wanted to keep them relatively close to the mobile infantry scheme, so I went with Broadsword Silver, again one of the speed paints. This goes down quite nicely, and once you put a wash over it later on, it just looks a lot better. And then finally, I did want to add a little bit of red in there, so I got the Slaughter Red, and I put that on things like the grenades that were hanging off the backpacks. Moving across onto anything like the visors, and one of them's got this like eyepiece as well. I used the new contrast paints, the Frost Heart. It's a really nice, vibrant blue. It's not too bright, and it's got this quite nice deep shade to it. And I really, really like using this on things like goggles and visors. Finally, anywhere that I wanted skin, I just used a layer paint Cadian Flesh Tone, and this looks really nice. I did go back in there with some Reichland Flesh Shade as well, just to add a little bit of depth to it, but apart from that, I did very little else to the flesh. Now, the first mistake that I ran into was just trying to highlight the things, and I'm not entirely sure if it's because I use speed paints, and sometimes they're a bit watercolory, and they're not quite as saturated, so putting a highlight over it can sometimes really clash, especially when you're a bit clueless like I can be when it comes to highlighting. I tried and messed about with these two Marines as well that I'll have on screen for you to see, just to kind of push some highlights here and there. Some of that green armour, it just didn't look right when I was putting those highlights on there, and it's really difficult to pick out some of those edges, so just something to bear in mind. I messed around and played a lot with these highlights, and in the end I just wasn't happy with the look, and when I looked at the two test models versus all the other models I already had kind of painted up to no highlight standard, I actually preferred the stuff that I was seeing with no highlights. So basically in the end, for the rest of the units, I got them all painted up with all the colours, threw Nuln Oil over all of them, and pretty much just left it there, and then popped the bases on. And actually I prefer them to the other ones that I've done. The other two units as well, I tried like a bit of like metallic chipping on there, and I don't mind that. I think it looks pretty good. But I'm not too sure. I think I messed those ones up playing around with it. It's just a bit of a lesson. Sometimes less is more, especially when you have them in a regiment. I was just focusing on that one mini, really trying to make it stand out. But ultimately, these don't have anything particular that stands out on them. They work as a regiment and a squad, and they look fantastic as a big group, but not so great on their own. Not entirely sure if I like them. On their own, like I said, they just don't stand out, but as a group, I think they look pretty cool. My big mistake was definitely go with the mobile infantry theme. It's kind of boring when it's on the tabletop because nothing on them actually stands out. They just look like a bit of a mass of colours. They look great fun, and with the blue visors, they do pop just a little bit, but I kind of wish that I'd gone for that white and black instead. Maybe on the next one I'll give it a go. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you like the mobile infantry theme? Would you prefer me to do something different in the future? And now I need to go and slay some Tyranids, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you've enjoyed that video. If you have, hit the like and subscribe button. Come along for some more awesome content in the future, and I'll see you soon. Bye.